Hi there, I'm Jessica Yuen and I'm the founder and CEO of Specialist Education Advisory, SEA. I'm also a Registered Migration Agent, or RMA, MARN number 2117701, which means I can give Australian migration advice, and I'm a Registered Education Counsellor. So today I'm going to talk to you about some of the pathways that are available to Hong Kongers. So these include the Investment Visa 188, the Global Talent Visa 858, the Skilled Visas 491, 190, and the Student Route, which leads to Permanent Residency. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the 188. The 188A is where one can take an existing business in Hong Kong and take it to Australia. Now, each state would have a requirement. So in the case of Western Australia, the requirement is that the qualifying business must have a turnover of 500,000 Australian dollars. Now, the requirement from state to state does differ. Now, the next one that I'm going to talk about is the 188B, which is the investor visa. That requires that you invest $2.5 million of that Australian, so that's 2.5 million. Now, of that, the state again would have a requirement of how much that they would want that invested. So some states would ask you to put that in a managed fund or an equity. These are things that we would have to look at on a case-by-case basis. Now, for example, in Western Australia, they do require that you spend 1.25 million of that is invested in Western Australia. Okay, next I'm going to talk to you about the 858 or Global Talent Visa. The Global Talent Visa, as many of you know, requires that you do an expression of interest, and then based on that, we will wait to see if you get an invitation, and then you get a visa, which is a direct route to permanent residency. So if you're within the sectors of cybersecurity, tourism, infrastructure, etc., and you think that you may be qualified in that, I'm more than happy to have a look at CVs if you would like to drop us a line. Now, what can you do in the meantime? Do you have awards? Do you have certificates? If you're an academic, do you have academic papers? Do you have conferences? Do you have things on Google? If I was to open search and do a search on you, would I find information? And last but not least is the nominator. Is your nominator a strong nominator? Are they in the top of this field? They must be in the same field as you. But are they at the top of their profession? Are they? How can they advocate for you? And what can they tell the Australian community that you can bring to Australia? These are the things that the Global Talent Office does look for. That nominator must be an Australian citizen or an Australian permanent resident. Okay, next, the Skilled Visa, the 491 and 190. Some states are open. So for 491, that's the regional visa, and the 190 is the skilled visa. So they're both skilled visas. The difference being is the 491 is specifically regional for any areas outside of Sydney, Brisbane or Melbourne. So the outside areas. These include Adelaide and Perth. Now, in the case of some states, they are open. South Australia is one of them. Not all occupations are open. So in the meantime, if there are those of you who are considering the skilled route, I would suggest that if you have to, in the meantime, make sure that your IELTS is up to date, your skills assessment is up to date, as these are things that we would need for Skill Select. Okay, and lastly, I'm going to talk to you about the student visa. Student visa is a route which requires that you study for 2 years. Once you've studied for that 2 years, you apply for a 485 temporary graduate visa. Once you do that, you apply for a 189 if you're staying in a major city, or a 191 if you're in a regional area. So that's 4 and 3 years, respectively. So, which means effectively that you can be within a course of 6 years, you could apply for PR in Australia. Okay, so in the next slide are our details, so feel free to drop us a line, WhatsApp, message. More than happy to give you an answer to anything. Thank you for listening.